Do you remember when Tony Hawk games were on top of the world? With its arcade-like gameplay and killer soundtrack, Tony Hawk's extensive line of video games published by Activision were everything, and not only helped to popularize the skateboarding boom in the 90s, but also a huge wave of copycat games, some even from Activision itself. The success of anything also comes with its downfall, and the Tony Hawk series has certainly seen its fair share of ups and downs, but could this be the final nail in the coffin? And just to point out, the Tony Hawk series is huge, and I'll be going over the main series and a few spin-offs, but not entirely everything. Wanting to cash in on the popularity of skateboarding, Activision and Neversoft would develop their own skateboarding game. Late in its development, Tony Hawk signed on to appear in and be the face of this brand new game. Released in 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater would become an instant success thanks to its welcoming and fun arcade-like gameplay and memorable soundtrack. 3 further sequels spawned from this success, with Pro Skater 4 becoming the highest rated entry in the series. And this would make Activision turn the Tony Hawk series into an annualized series until 2007. Despite the success of each Pro Skater sequel, many critics were starting to tire of the formula. Neversoft would take a chance and push 2003's Tony Hawk game into new territory with the Underground sub-series, introducing a brand new story mode with the gameplay everyone knew and loved, even allowing players to get off the board for the very first time. It was a risk, but greatly paid off, breathing new life into the Tony Hawk series. It was followed by a sequel in 2004, continuing the story and pitting Tony Hawk versus Bam Margera. 2005's Tony Hawk's American Wasteland would continue to push the series forward. It featured a brand new story set in the game's own version of Los Angeles. Each individual open level is now seamlessly connected into one vast level and lacks loading times, something we're seeing more and more with today's console generation. With the 7th generation of consoles came the introduction of the HD era. 2006's Tony Hawk's Project 8 would be the first true entry made for next-gen consoles, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. Of course, the previous generation also received its own versions, but next-gen was where it was at. In the game, Tony Hawk's newly announced Project 8 sees 8 of the town's best skateboarders selected for Hawk's new team, with the player trying to be the best out of 200 ranks. A new major feature was Nail the Trick, where the focus shifted to the skateboard, allowing for specific tricks to be done with the analog sticks. 2007's Proving Ground ultimately added a little to what was seen before. This time, instead of an overarching story, new smaller stories can be played in any order. One thing was for certain though, Proving Ground was a good game, but many agreed that the Tony Hawk series was starting to show its age, especially when EA would release the one and only truest rival to the Tony Hawk series called Skate. There have been way too many Tony Hawk copycat games since the series debut, but Skate was the one series that stood on its own, much like Rock Band going up against Guitar Hero. What made Skate stand out was its flick control system that used the analog sticks for character control and tricks, rather than the button pressing seen in Tony Hawk games. In fact, Skate's debut in 2007 was so popular in sales that it beat out Proving Ground 2-1. With a decline in sales of the series and the rise of EA Skate, Proving Ground would be the last entry developed by Neversoft, as Activision would move the developer over to the recently acquired Guitar Hero series, and the Tony Hawk series would be put on hiatus. Guitar Hero was an immense success, and it was probably a wise business move for the time. Neversoft would develop 2007's Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock all the way up to 2010's Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock. But oversaturation in the marketplace between Guitar Hero and Rock Band were turning consumers away. Warriors of Rock underperformed both critically and commercially. And if you know anything about Activision, you'll know that if their developer fails, there is a price to pay, and that price is usually Call of Duty. Neversoft would be reduced to a support studio for various Call of Duty games. This would span Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Call of Duty Ghosts, and lastly Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, where the studio was then merged into Infinity Ward and never heard from again. Meanwhile, the Tony Hawk series would be passed off to the Chicago-based independent developer Robomoto in 2008, who created some of the most infamous entries in the series, going with a different direction, likely due to the popularity of motion and accessory-based gaming with the Wii and Guitar Hero. Tony Hawk Ride and Tony Hawk Shred would be released in 2009 and 2010. Both require the use of a skateboard peripheral to replicate tricks of a real skateboard. Both bombed hard, and like Guitar Hero bundles, stores had difficulty selling these Ride and Shred bundles even at a discounted price. Activision put the series on hiatus once again while they figured out how to proceed. Likely wanting to re-earn the trust of the fanbase, Activision remade Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 into a digital-only package onto the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and Steam called Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD in 2012. Further levels based on Pro Skater 3 would be released as DLC. though in 2017, both Pro Skater HD and its DLC would be delisted from all digital storefronts. But the biggest bomb in the series was 2015's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. Knowing their licensing agreement with Tony Hawk was ending that year, Activision would rush the development of Pro Skater's big return in only a few months, releasing an unfinished product with a huge day one patch to unlock the rest of the game. In fact, you cannot play the main game without this patch, only the tutorial and the part creator will be available. This is one of the worst practices a company can do and a huge slap in the face for all the people who spent money on the game. It was heavily panned by critics, contained numerous bugs and glitches, and did nothing to elevate the series. The cel-shaded characters turned fans away, and in general it was just an ugly looking game that could have been so much more. For an asking price of $60, it was not worth the amount of money for a game practically containing almost nothing. Pro Skater 5 was the last game ever by Robomoto, likely being the game that made them go out of business. But the blame isn't entirely on them. With Activision rushing the game to market to make a quick buck on nostalgia, someone had to take the blame for its failure, and that wouldn't be Activision. For 5 years, the reputation of Tony Hawk games was lost to Pro Skater 5, and skateboarding games as a whole weren't really as relevant as they once were, but remakes were on the rise. Activision made gold cashing in on nostalgia with the Crash Bandicoot and Spyro Trilogy remakes, and in 2020 a remake, or as Activision insists, a remaster of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 came out by Vicarious Visions, and Vicarious Visions was an excellent choice for the remake. For years, they were a part of the Tony Hawk series, developing a majority of the games for handheld systems, the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS, so if anyone had a good grasp on how to proceed, it was them. Finally, the series had a major hit since the 2000s among fans and critics, leading many demanding a remake of Pro Skater 3 and 4. With Pro Skater 1 and 2 becoming the fastest selling entry in the franchise, a sequel was inevitable, right? As it turns out, it was, but not in the way anyone ever expected. Tony Hawk's successful money-making return to the top would be cut severely short. Any goodwill Activision made with the excellent remake of Pro Skater 1 and 2 was gone as reports of a Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake was cancelled. Activision moved developer Vicarious Visions into Blizzard Entertainment in 2021, and by April 2022, the studio would be merged and renamed into Blizzard Albany, erasing an entire legacy of classic and iconic titles developed. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 would be Vicarious Visions' final game before the merge. Activision did try to find a third-party developer for Pro Skater 3 and 4, but found no one who could do the same work as Vicarious Visions did. And if they did, we may have been in another Robomoto situation again. It's almost like Activision shouldn't have made the choice they did, and as we know it, the Tony Hawk series is dead. While Tony Hawk games will likely still have some kind of future, even if it's not with Activision, really it's Activision that's the problem. I get it, they're a business first and foremost, and Call of Duty is no doubt a big franchise that keeps selling millions upon millions every year. But that's all Activision is these days, a Call of Duty machine. Maybe they have a different title every couple of years, but really that's it. Vicarious Visions did wonders for the overall series, especially the Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, but their success wasn't met with gratitude by Activision, and like Neversoft, they were gone. Perhaps if or when the Microsoft deal goes through, we could see a new Tony Hawk game, but really who knows, Xbox may be the only chance for Tony Hawk to have a resurrection, unless Activision can wise up and expand their portfolio of games once again. Or perhaps it's another chance for EA's Skate franchise to shine with its fourth entry, once again dominating the skateboard video games as they once did in the late 2000s. Maybe if EA's free-to-play skate game finds success, this will prompt Activision to do the same with premium passes and loads of microtransactions. Really, who knows what the future holds? But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe this is the end of the Tony Hawk series, or does it have a future? What are your favorite Tony Hawk games and memories of the series? Please be sure to like and subscribe for future videos, and if you want to watch something else, I highly recommend checking out these other Is This the End videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.